I saw some reporting, again, bad reporting this morning, that we had formally requested an extension of the ceasefire. That is not true at this moment. We remain very much engaged in these negotiations, in these talks. You heard from the Vice President directly and the President this week that these conversations are productive and ongoing. We feel good about the prospects of a deal. The President mentioned that in his interview yesterday. And it's obviously in the best interest of Iran to meet the President's demands. I think he's made his red lines in these negotiations very clear to the other side, and so we are continuing to see how these conversations go.
Former White House Chief of Staff in the first Trump administration, Mark Meadows, joins me. Nice to see you, Mark.
It's great to be with you.
I just spoke with Senator John Thune, and he mentioned what everyone keeps repeating in the media and every place, is that the party in power always loses the midterms. Why is that? Why does the party in power lose in the midterms?
Well, I think there's a broad dissatisfaction with Washington, D.C., and when it's not a presidential year, the natural reaction is just to throw the bums out and get somebody else. That being said, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. Obviously, you and I have talked about this. If Iran is in the rearview mirror and not at our windshield, that will help a whole bunch. But the other part of that is a lot of times you coast into the midterms. And so my encouragement to Speaker Johnson and to Leader Thune would be continue to legislate, continue to show what you're doing for the American people. You know, today you were covering tax day. Listen, there's stuff that we can still do to reduce the burden on seniors. Let's lower the capital gains tax for those seniors that have houses and make sure that they can liquidate those instead of having to hold on to them.
You know, when I used to do my taxes for my mother when she was living, and she gets Social Security, the idea that she had to pay taxes on Social Security made me crazy. I thought, why don't you just give her less Social Security? Instead, we have to go through the hoops of filing the tax returns.
Well, it is, and it's sad. In some states have actually been pretty aggressive, like South Carolina. They don't tax Social Security and retirement plans.
But the feds do.
But the feds do,
yeah,
because it's all in a gamut where they say, well, we're going to give it to you with this hand, but we're going to take it away with the other.
And not to mention that you paid into it in the first place. It's not like it's you know, you paid for 40 years or whatever.
Well, and I didn't know your mom, but I can guarantee you that she spent her money more wisely than anybody here in this city would ever spend it.
But I don't know how hard she worked to get it, though. I must say, in all candor, she was not the hardest working person I ever met. I loved her, but that was a short suit. But okay, now you were in the House, and I asked this of Thune too. Is this tax code? It's insane. 70,000 pages. No one in his right mind can read that. 70,000 pages. And I mean, like, is it ever going to change? I mean, we had the postcard. For a while, people said it was going to be on a postcard. But, I mean, both parties must feel the pain of that.
Well, you've covered this. When Senator Ted Cruz ran for office, he was talking about filing your taxes on a postcard. But we can do so much better. But here's what happens. You know, a few blocks from right where we're broadcasting this today is K Street. And when you look at K Street, it's not just the special interests on the left, it's the special interests on the right. And so they all come in. And one of the big things is the American people on Main Street, they're tired of big corporations winning. And yet Capitol Hill, a lot of times, will give carve-outs for this corporation and the other. I think you simplify it, you let everybody have a little bit of skin in the game, and indeed, have it where it can be filed on a postcard.
Well, I remember how horrified I was with Obamacare, because it was 2,200 pages when it first got, and I tried to read it, and I read legislation as a lawyer forever, and I couldn't file. It was incomprehensible. Really. Then they sent it over to HHS, and it became 20,000 pages, and I was scandalized, like, because all of a sudden, all these people we'd never met before, never voted, were suddenly putting all these regulations into it. It was crazy. Well, now I hear that was 22,000 pages or something, and this is 70,000.
Well, it's not only is it so complex that even your paid professionals that are preparing tax returns, a lot of times they're scratching their head. Well, how does this apply? But you hit the nail on the head. It's all about those regulations that go along with it. They complicate it even further. That keep everybody guessing. It keeps an entire industry at work. And yet, if you simplified it, I believe you'd get more money. into the Treasury because you'd have less loopholes for big corporations and others to exploit, and the average American would love it because they wouldn't dread April 15th.
Well, and the notes you get from them are they sound like they're going to send you to jail. They act like you're a crook because you made, because they say you made a mistake when you didn't prepare it yourself. I mean, they infer such dirty minds on behalf of the American taxpayers. The IRS does.
Well, they do. Hopefully, Secretary Bassett, we were talking about the Fed chair and that new Fed chair. Well, hopefully, there's a real push to say, let's simplify it. But can you?
But will Congress listen to them? Because Congress is the one who's got to do this.
Congress is the one that has to do it. I think that there are a number of people that do that. But once you get in power, once you get to be a chairman of one of those committees, everybody's coming. They're writing the checks to you. So it's time that we say that if you have something before Congress, that you don't lobby Congress, especially if you're giving money to some of these key members on Ways and Means. And I'm talking about both sides of the aisle. They both do it. But it's time that we do it. But the American people ultimately, you ask why the midterms are such a problem? It's because we've been talking about a simplified tax code for decades, and yet it's not done. And they pull their hair out. Why is it so hard? And it shouldn't be. I just tell the person, I just don't want to go to jail. I mean, tell me what I don't want to go to jail. That's all. At least not now. Mark Meadows, thank you. Great to be with you. People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for The Record on Newsmax.